Heavy rain and winds for the next 24 hours or so.
To the United States, where Congress and the White House had another missed opportunity to end a government shutdown and avoid a debt default. The October 17th deadline is only 4 days away, and there is still no deal in sight.
In the face of damaging opinion polls, Republicans work to ensure the debt limit is increased with minimal damage to the financial markets. The GOP's latest proposal paired a 6-month plan to keep the federal government open with an increase in the government's borrowing limit through January. It's a temporary band-aid that President Barack Obama rejected outright.
And it wouldn't be wise, as some suggest, to just kick the debt ceiling can down the road for a couple of months and flirt with the first ever intentional default right in the middle of the holiday shopping season.
Democrats in the White House say any deal has to increase the debt limit and reopen the government. But Republicans demand concessions that include reining in debt and stopping bloated government spending. They warn Americans not to be fooled by Obama's drama.
Now, I'm sure all this back and forth has sounded like the typical Washington drama. But politics isn't about politicians. It's about stemming the tide of debt and deficits that threaten to wash out an entire generation's opportunities.
But Obama still refuses Republican concessions and insists the GOP is keeping the government closed.
A political party is risking default for the first time since the 1700s. This is not normal, and that's why we have to put a stop to it.
The president of the World Bank agreed, urging U.S. policymakers to fix their problems before it's too late.
Inaction could result in interest rates rising, confidence falling, and growth slowing. If this comes to pass, it could be a disastrous event for the developing world.
Despite the standoff, 3 of the most famous U.S. national parks, the Grand Canyon, Mount Rushmore, and the Statue of Liberty, are set to reopen. State governors reached deals to reopen their respective parks between Saturday and Monday.
U.S. fugitive and whistleblower Edward Snowden may be a criminal to authorities in America, but to some former U.S. government officials, he is a hero. They presented Snowden with the Sam Adams Award for Integrity in Intelligence. In his acceptance speech, Snowden criticized National Security Agency surveillance methods as dangerous to democracy.
This is about a trend in the relationship between the governing and the governed in America that is coming increasingly into conflict with what we expect as a free and democratic people. If we can't understand the policies and programs of our government, we cannot grant our consent in regulating them.
The video released by WikiLeaks was reportedly shot this past week in Moscow, where Snowden was granted asylum back in August. The Americans who awarded Snowden once worked for the Central Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Justice Department, and the NSA. Snowden is still considered a U.S. fugitive charged with espionage. North Korea is refusing to sign a non-aggression agreement that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry offered earlier on condition of denuclearization. In a statement carried by the North Korean state media, a spokesman for the National Defense Commission said the U.S. should stop sanctions meant to punish the country's nuclear tests in February this year. Just a few days ago, Pyongyang criticized joint military drills by the U.S., South Korea, and Japan. Pyongyang viewed the drills as a military confrontation. Yesterday's response came after John Kerry said Washington was ready to have a peaceful relationship with Pyongyang, provided it's committed to denuclearization as agreed to in 2005.
Tens of thousands of people line the streets of Hanoi today to bid farewell to Vo Nguyen Giap, the general who led Vietnam to victory over France and then the United States. Some cried, others cheered in salute as his flag-draped coffin passed by on a truck-drawn carriage. The procession traveled along a 40-kilometer route from the National Funeral House in central Hanoi to the airport. He was buried later today in his home province in central Vietnam. Nicknamed the Red Napoleon, Giap is considered one of the greatest generals in the 20th century for his victories over vastly better equipped armies which ended French colonial rule and ensured communist control of Vietnam. Well, Australia's Labour Party has elected Bill Shorten as its new leader following the party's drubbing in last month's election. He'll be Labour's third leader in 4 months and takes over as new Conservative Prime Minister Tony Abbott prepares for the first sitting of Parliament. Shorten admitted his job won't be easy.
Rebuilding the Labor Party is a hard task. I don't have to say I'm humbled. I am genuinely humbled at the significant honour and privilege that the people in the Labor Party have displayed by choosing me to be their leader.
Authorities in the eastern city of Ningbo on the mainland are cleaning up an oil spill after a tanker explosion yesterday. The blast left 7 people dead and another person injured. The 300-ton tanker was under repair at a shipyard when the explosion occurred shortly before 9 a.m. The vessel then caught fire and oil leaked into the Yangjiang River, a major source of water for Ningbo, which has a population of more than 7 million. The fire was extinguished in about 2 hours. Maritime authorities sent 6 boats to the scene to deal with the oil leak. Workers set up booms to contain the oil spill as cleanup efforts got underway. The cause of the explosion is still being investigated. And still to come in our newscast, additional terms and conditions for licenses of upstairs bars, the proposed Harbourfront Authority to focus on its social objectives, and new flood barriers to protect Venice from high tides.